Hello guys, welcome back to House of Cramel and welcome back to another video. I'm so excited to be here with you. This video is super special for two reasons. One, it is Black Breastfeeding week here, I'll say in the US. I'm not sure if it's worldwide, but I'm a Black mom and I did breastfeed. We'll talk more about that in a minute. Number two, and you also saw the title of the video, pros and cons of breastfeeding. So we will be talking about this. Number two, I am collaborating with my girl, my YouTube, my IG buddy, Flourish with Dolores. She will also be doing a video on the pros and cons of breastfeeding, and we just kind of talking about this together. So make sure you head over to her video to check out her pros and cons as well. And if you're coming here from Flourish with Dolores, hello, my name is House of Cramel and I'm so glad to have you here. Here, I'm a working mom of now 2 baby boys. I have a loving husband named Charles, and around here we love to talk all things mom, home decor, and organization, and anything else that will make your life easier. So if any of that sounds appealing to you, why don't you go ahead and hit the subscribe button, come back and see us so you know the next time I upload another video. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the talk about the pros and cons of breastfeeding. If you're an OG here, you know I'm in front of the fireplace, so I got something to say. All right, so just to start it off, something that Dolores and I have in common is that we both recently had babies. I had my second child. He is a boy, his name is Camden, and Camden is on his way to being 3 months very soon, but he's 2 months right now, and he is 2 months of just oh my gosh, I love him so much. It's like having my first son over again. It's really weird because they look just alike. I basically had the same baby over again. So the thing I had in common with both of those boys is that I breastfed, gave them breast milk for a time, both of them. My first son, I breastfed him, and when I say breastfeed for me, I exclusively pumped because my first son had a lot of trouble latching, so I decided to exclusively pump. For those of you that don't know what that means, it means my son did not take milk directly from the breast. I pumped with a pump every day, several times a day, basically on a schedule that he would eat so that he would have milk. So I exclusively pumped for him for 6 months. I am very proud of that 6 months. It was a labor of love, to say the least. For my new son, my baby boy Camden, I have recently stopped my journey of pumping and nursing. Now, on the contrary, Camden did awesome with latching and everything. While we were at the hospital, I breastfed him exclusively, which I was extremely proud of because that just wasn't the case with my first son, and I was just so worried the first time around. But he did excellent there. When we got home, he also breastfed here. I did supplement a little because I got a bit in my head about if he was getting enough, but he still definitely breastfed, and I also pumped. Pumping is something that I was very used to, being that I exclusively pumped with my first son. So it was just kind of a way of life for me. But along the way, being a second time mom, I really knew what it took for me personally to be able to complete this journey for however long I wanted to complete it. Everyone's breastfeeding journey is so different. So one of the first things I want to say about it, this isn't one of my pointers yet, but I do want to say that everybody's journey is different. So coming into it with a ton of expectations, I mean, it can be great, but one of my faux pas, I'll say, with my first pregnancy was coming in thinking that it was going to be all good. I was just going to whip it out. He was going to latch, and I was going to feed him, and everything would be great. And it just simply did not work that way. Breastfeeding is, it's a job. And everything, like a lot of things with having a baby, don't necessarily go as you think they might. That's not necessarily a bad or a good thing, but I just want to emphasize that every woman's breastfeeding journey is different. Some women have the gift of a wonderful supply, which also comes with its own drawbacks, mastitis, just swelling, infection, all kinds of things I won't necessarily talk about here, but those also come with its challenges. And also you have just enough producers and underproducers, and I was somewhere between an just enough producer and an underproducer. With my second son, I kind of saw my supply dip dramatically after about a month. And there are a lot of things that you can do to get them back up. But for reasons that I'll talk about in my pointers, I decided to end my journey about 2 months. And I'll talk about why in my pointers. So let's talk about the good stuff. So the pros of breastfeeding. And when I say breastfeeding, that means however the means it is that you give your baby human breast milk. That could be pumping, that can be donated breast milk, that could be milk from you yourself, direct breastfeeding. However it is that you get the breast milk to the baby, these are pros that I have noticed throughout my journeys and my own research. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a lactation consultant. Please consult a lactation consultant or your pediatrician or your doctor for the very best and most accurate advice about breastfeeding. Do not hold me to any medical advice, okay? All right, so the first one is kind of obvious. It is the most natural way to feed your baby. Breast milk is built for the baby, so naturally it's easier for them to digest. I think there's a ton that goes through my mind when I think about that, because it also depends on your diet. So if you eat some gassy stuff, you could be passing that to your baby too. Your baby might have gas too. But neither here nor there. It is still the most natural way to feed your baby. Your breast milk is made for your baby. Like any other animal in the kingdom, honey. It is the perfect feeding beverage for them. And I think that's just awesome. That's number one. That is the pro. It is the most natural option. So it's organic, baby. It is all of the above. Whatever label you want to slap on it that you might have picked it up from the shelves of Whole Foods, you can put all of them on there because it came from you. It is the most natural option for any mom. Second pro, you guys, as usual, I have my phone because I didn't want to forget my tips. The second reason I think breastfeeding is so bomb is because it gives the baby passive immunity. What does that mean? So basically, if you get sick, I have a slight cold right now. Your body produces antibodies. All right, as I was saying, when you're sick, your body produces antibodies. Even when you're not sick, your body is constantly working, your immune system is constantly working to ward off sicknesses, anything that might be bad for your body. Those antibodies, by the miracle of life, by the miracle of life, are passed on to your breast milk and are passed on to your baby, which is amazing. It's like, that's crazy to me to even think about. So it's kind of like the very best medicine that you could give your baby as well. And because of that, breast milk be out here clearing up skin on the baby. I'm not really sure about you as an adult, but there's reasons why there are other things that breast milk are used. It's because of the amazing properties that are passed on by you to your breast milk. One of the reasons, so I made it a goal to try to get to at least 3 months to breastfeed Camden. I knew I didn't want to go a super long time just because I'm very familiar with a con that I will talk about later, or very shortly rather. But I wanted to get to at least 3 months. But when I saw my supply dip within like the first month, I said I need to make it to at least 2 months. And I talked to my cousin, whom is a doctor who gives medical advice that I trust. She said, I had mentioned to her what I wanted to do. And she said, well, because the baby will get, and I do vaccinate, my baby will have had more of his shots by 2 months, which he's had. And that will help give his immune system a boost to ward off some of like the badass things that babies and humans need help fighting off. Until that time, she said that would probably be a good benchmark if I felt like I couldn't make it to 3 months. So then my benchmark became at least 2 months, because I wanted to be able to give him as much immune system support as possible in these early months of his life, weeks, months of his life, until he got a chance to get his shots. So that is why my goal changed, and that's a big part of why we are here now. So yes, antibodies, passive immunity, read more about it. Ask your pediatrician more information about this if you have access to a lactation consultant. If you don't, find one. It's not that hard. Talk to them about it. And third, my third biggest pro about breastfeeding is that you just feel like a freaking superwoman. It is one of the most rewarding experiences in early parenting of your child, to be able to produce the life milk, the milk that the baby needs. It's an awesome feeling. It's a lot of work, but it's just an awesome feeling to be able to care for your baby in that way. So those are my 3 pros, and like, yeah, I think they're all awesome. Now for the cons. I usually call, even with work, when I used to manage a team, I didn't like to call things cons or weaknesses. I like to call them opportunities. So we'll say opportunities. I don't know if that really fits, but I don't like to say cons. But this is just some things that you should think about when you are embarking on your breastfeeding journey. Number 1, in the early months of breastfeeding, I can't really speak for past 6 months, but it is extremely difficult to follow a schedule when you're breastfeeding. Most of the time, because you're feeding the baby on demand. So when the baby's hungry, it's advised that you feed them. This becomes a little bit easier when you are pumping, because it's kind of like it is bottle feeding, but you're bottle feeding breast milk. So you can follow a schedule a bit better that way. But if you're like direct breastfeeding, it is just difficult to follow your own schedule. I have definitely seen plenty of mothers do it. So I'm sure you fall into some type of stride eventually, or your baby kind of levels out. But for me, it was just so hard to follow a schedule. And for me, I'm such a schedule person. Y'all know I love scheduling, organization, to-do lists, all those types of things. And it kind of bugged me that I could be locked down for literally hours on a time. I remember specifically one episode with my first son, Charles. I was one of the few times that he did latch, and I thought we were having a good week. I fed him, and he literally ate for maybe an hour, and he was eating roughly every 2 hours by then. So by that time, after he finally finished eating, he fell asleep. I kind of fell asleep, so I was nap trapped by myself and the baby. If you don't know what nap trapped is, that means you're holding the baby sleep. You don't want to wake up, because you know if you make one move, the nap is gonna be over. So you would rather them get the nap. So nap trapped. And then by the time we woke up, it was time to feed him again. And this cycle just kind of went on all day, and I got literally nothing done. So while there's nothing wrong with that, it was just difficult. It was just difficult. So it's kind of difficult. I'll just say it's difficult to follow a schedule in the early weeks or months. But clearly, a lot of moms figure it out. So maybe Dolores can talk more about this part. But, you know, just kind of seek out some other YouTubers or other stories of women that breastfeed to see how they kind of leveled out as far as scheduling. I personally never figured it out. And if you are having trouble figuring it out, you are not alone. But also just know somebody's out here doing it. So, second con. It can be expensive. One of the I'll call it a myth. One of the myths about breastfeeding is that it is less expensive than feeding your baby formula. It can be if everything is working out for you and you don't need any type of tools to help boost your supply. Or I kind of even don't even agree with that, because especially if you're working or if there's a reason you're away from the baby, there are still some investments that you will have to make. Now, coming from the perspective of a working mom who likes to stay on a schedule, there were some considerable investments I made into my first breastfeeding journey and my second. The first one is a breast pump. Fortunately, I did get a breast pump. This is the Spectra. It's wonderful. I'm not going to do a review here on it, but let me know if you want one. But there are plenty on YouTube. I got that one through my insurance. Because it's considered a more premium breast pump, I did have to pay a little bit more for it. But it wasn't nearly as much as I would have paid in the store. But that wasn't the only breast pump I bought. Because if you notice, this is big, and this isn't all of the parts either. There's tubes and phalanges, cups, and all kind of things. But because I was exclusively pumping, I also made the investment in the LV. I bought the double LV, so I have one for each, and I kept it for my second journey. But this was not covered by insurance. And even if it is somewhat covered by some insurances, I think it depends on your insurance. The LVs are expensive. These are expensive. Fortunately, the marketplace is coming up with a lot more less expensive versions of cordless pumps. So that's awesome. But in my first journey, I invested in this because I was exclusively pumping, and I needed anything that was going to help me make it easier with pumping in the car, going to events, like anywhere, going to work, period. In traffic, because any time during the day can be a pumping period. If you're having trouble with your supply, there are vitamins and drinks and supplements and cookies and brownies, all types of things out here that you are more than willing to try to get your supply up and keep it. And those things are not cheap, okay? So when I say breastfeeding can be expensive, that's what I mean. And you gotta also be careful about the marketplace, because there's plenty of things out here that are just primed and ready to sucker first time, I'll say specifically first time moms in, like myself, I was at one point. Because you just want to do anything to help your baby, and there is nothing wrong with that. But make sure you do your research and do all of the first things first before even getting to that point. Just literally feeding a baby, skin to skin is something they recommend, and there are lots of things they recommend to help you get your supply up. It doesn't work for everyone as much as they would like, but they definitely are effective, probably for every mom. So that's what I mean by saying breastfeeding can be expensive, okay? And by the time you just buy a little jar of formula and water, everybody has bottles. It's just like, well, dang. Yeah, it becomes a lot simpler. I'm kind of getting the idea to do a formula fed pros and cons video too. It might only be fair because I am now a formula feeding mom, and I know there are lots of you guys out there. So yeah, maybe be on the lookout for that. Okay, so the third and last con that I'll talk about, and it kind of goes with my first con, is that it can take time away from other things, especially pumping. I'll say even just breastfeeding. If you're not the type of mom that would just kind of feed anywhere, which I hope every mom can get to that point where they're comfortable enough to feed their baby wherever they are. And I hope everyone in the world can become accepting of that, because it's BS if you can't. It's natural. Anyway, sorry, I didn't think I would get that. I didn't think I would get this passionate in this video, but clearly I am. But if you're not that, but if you aren't that type of mom, there's a lot of time away you may have to spend from things that you normally wouldn't. So like, for instance, I remember I went to a 40th birthday party with my first son. And because the party was over a time that I needed to pump, I had bought everything I needed to bring. I had to go pump. So I missed a considerable amount of the party. I had to leave my baby. Well, I left my baby with his grandmother, and his dad was out there too, so that was fine. But I was just in the bathroom pumping my little life away. And after so many times of doing that, it can kind of get to you. It can kind of make you sad. And one of the things that I kind of have been a bit more adamant about as a second time mom is I didn't want to take too much time away from my first child. My first baby is still pretty young. He's 3 years old, and he has needs. And having a second baby, I knew would be there would be some time sacrifices as far as he was concerned too. So it was super important for me to kind of mitigate those things, which is another reason why I chose to end my breastfeeding journey a bit early. Pumping and feeding, having to seclude myself from certain things, or just the time itself, it just became more of a priority for me to make sure I had enough of my time budget for both children. And because of the gift of formula, that was one way that I could cut down on time being taken away from the rest of my family, if that makes sense. So I guess you could say the other big reason, this is the part where I talk about why another reason I ended my breastfeeding journey early, was because I didn't want to make as much of a time sacrifice away from my family and other things that are super important to me. So because we have this other amazing way to feed my baby, that is why I ended my journey earlier than I did my first. Otherwise, it probably would have been around 6 months as well. I was well aware of what it took for me personally to be able to embark on this. And because it started to trend kind of similarly, I made a hard decision. And I'm not saying that it was definitely a hard decision, but also very much at peace with it. And I'm happy with it. I am very happy with it. So just keep that in mind when you are just keep that in mind when you are kind of thinking about breastfeeding or on your current journey. Just the fact that it could take away time from things. And also being that I'm a working mom, I would have to pump throughout the day. I am in a, it's not that new anymore, but as of last year, I took on a newer role at work. And it is more challenging and a bit more just demanding. And I often worried about how I would balance pumping at work and making it to all my meetings and doing everything that I needed to do at work. My job does try to make it easy for breastfeeding moms. We have a very nice mother's lounge, and I'm pretty sure my manager would have been very accommodating. But there's also the work, there's also the deliverables and the stress of it all. And believe it or not, stress absolutely directly impacts your breastfeeding journey. It can affect your supply, like literally stress. So I just kind of wasn't interested in balancing all of those balls. So like I said, I made the difficult choice to go ahead and stop before I headed back to work. And that's it, guys. Again, I want to reiterate that every woman's journey is different. and be proud of whatever you've accomplished so far. And I'll leave you with this. My sister gave me one of the best pieces of advice when I was on my very first breastfeeding journey with my first son. And that was never quit on a bad day. Now, obviously, you can apply that gem to a lot of hard things in your life, but you'll find that some will find that breastfeeding can, while it's rewarding, it can be a very frustrating and challenging journey as well. And you never want to make an emotional decision to quit on that day. If you do decide to stop, make sure you make an informed, calm decision about when and why you want to do this. And that will definitely help you be at more peace with your decision if your desire is to transition into another way of feeding your baby. Because fed is best. That is what I believe, and that is what has been proven for me. So thank you guys for watching my video. If you made it to the end, my camera barely made it, but if you made it to the end, thank you so much, and I hope this was super helpful. Drop your comments down in the comment area. Let me know how your journey is going. How long have you been breastfeeding? How long have you been pumping? What kind of pump do you use? Let's talk about all the things down there. And again, make sure you go to my girl's YouTube channel, Flourish with Dolores. I will have it linked below, and I will also kind of display it right here. And check out her pros and cons on breastfeeding as a first-time mom. Love you guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you later. Bye.
There was once a day that I would pray for you. I'd go and misbehave just so you'd notice too. Sneaking looks up and down from across the room. And damn, what a hell of a